Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics, a Catholic women's talk show podcast. I'm Stacy, one of your hosts, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Alisha.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Lauren.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics, and Happy New Year. So we thought that starting this new year, we would go ahead and reintroduce ourselves. So for those of you who've been following us even before we had our first episode out, we did a series on our Facebook group page. So if you haven't joined our Facebook group, Coffee and Catholics, you should go ahead and try that. We also have Instagram and Twitter. But before we even released our first episode a year and a half ago, we introduced ourselves on that Facebook page. But since then, we have a lot more listeners and who are not on that group. So a lot of you have no idea who we are. So we thought that we would use the next 4 episodes to reintroduce ourselves to you. And today we are going to be interviewing our very own Alisha. So Alisha, where are you from originally?
Well, I originally was from Washington State. That's where I grew up until I was 13, I think, and then moved here to Oklahoma. And since moving to Oklahoma, I've moved around the Oklahoma City area a bit.
What is something that you miss about Washington State?
I would say mostly the mountains. Because I didn't grow up in like a big mountainous area, but there were like the kind of like the tail ends of the mountain range, like the Rocky Mountains right by where I lived, and we'd go hiking up there. I recently learned though that apparently my parents told me repeatedly not to go up there, and we just did. And I was in like middle school. My sister's in upper middle school, like early high school, and my like little sisters are in elementary school, and we still just went up there, and there were like mountain lions and things, and that's why they didn't want us to go up there. And so we would go up there and then come home. They'd be like, "Where were you guys at? We were looking for you." And they're like, "We're up in the mountains." And
like,
they were just really happy we didn't
very
get
nonchalant. Where else would I be?
Yeah, we didn't
in the mountains.
I was thinking Sister Maria.
How can I not sing?
So
did you twirl any with your arms open wide?
I can't recall, but I'm sure. I don't know. A silly teenager. So, but yeah. So that's what I miss most.
When you were younger, did you play any sports?
I did. I played a couple of them, like volleyball. I did tennis for about like 2 days. And I think middle school or high school. And then I just decided that all the running they made us do was just not my thing. And the one that I did for the longest was gymnastics. So I know that there's like a debate of whether or not gymnastics is a sport. I'm here to tell you it is. But but
who would debate that? Oh, gosh, that's
yeah. Well, yeah.
It's in the Olympics too.
I know, right? But yeah. So I did that for a few years, and yeah.
Do you play any instruments?
No, I pretend sometimes like I can play guitar. Just like in stories when I'm talking to people, so they think I'm me. But I really can't. Like I can play. What is the dun 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 dun? I think everybody knows how to play that song though. Like when you're learning, yeah. So I can do that, and then I learned how to play "Mary Had a Little Lamb." I think. Other than that, though, I don't. So I would like to.
Yeah.
But I'm really bad at hobbies.
I don't think I've ever met one adult that doesn't wish they had stuck with their lessons and learned to play an instrument. Like, I can't think of anyone.
Right. Well, and my husband, he plays guitar and bass, or he used to. He hasn't played in a while. But I used to ask him all the time to let me, like, to teach me. And he won't do it because he says that it's just too annoying.
Very charitable.
It's like trying to teach your own children an instrument, and you just teach your own spouse.
Yeah, I'm hard to deal with. Yeah.
So do you have any hobbies then?
None that are consistent. I'm really bad at them. I'm really bad at keeping. I crochet. I do crochet, but I stopped doing that. Like I had a goal, as you guys know. I had a goal to make scarves, like little puppet scarves for my nieces and nephews.
They were super cute.
They were, but I started like 2 months too late, and then I got really overwhelmed and stressed out, and had to buy Christmas presents for 16 kids a week before Christmas. Yeah.
Well, now, not 2 months too late. You started 12 months early for next year.
See,
Yeah,
there you
This
go.
is true. This is true. And it hasn't really been cold this year.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like maybe this God intervened. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do crochet some and I do enjoy that. I used to hate it. I used to try it and I hated it, and I would curse and throw the things and get really mad. It was a very big stressor in my life. I don't know why I did it for so long, but I took a break and I'm back at it, and it is fun.
You made a really cute shark hat.
I did. Yeah, I made
It
sure.
has crazy eyes, but it was really cute.
I like those eyes.
It's for my 3-year-old, and it's very appropriate for him. He's nuts. So, yeah.
Oh, sweet boy.
Next question.
So, Alisha, you talked a little bit about your conversion on our podcast before, so we already know you're not a cradle Catholic, but how long have you been a Catholic?
I think I've been Catholic going on about 11 years now. So,
Do you remember when you entered the church, like how that felt?
yeah, it was kind of surprising because way back when, 11 years ago, when I entered the church, I was very much a crier. Like, I cried about everything. I was very emotional. And so I figured that when I came into the church, I was just going to like bawl my eyes out. And I told my sponsor this, and I told my family this, and all that. And I, got baptized, and then everybody went to the pew, and then we went up to, I can't remember how it worked. I think we got baptized and then confirmed and then received communion. So we did that, and I got up to receive communion, and I was thinking I was going to cry because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm receiving our Lord for the first time. This is amazing. And I was just, dumbstruck. But I received, and I sat down and started praying, and it wasn't like there was no big emotions really. It was just like very peaceful. Mm-hmm. It was just nothing but peace. And it was kind of funny though, because my sponsor, I think, thought I was crying because I had my hands like kind of over my face and like praying with my hands kind of cupped over my eyes, so she couldn't see me, and so she was like patting my back like, it's okay.
You're like really sorry.
Like, I'm really fine. I'm fine. Like, I'm good. So yeah, it was a very, very beautiful experience. So,
what is your favorite way to keep your faith alive and fresh and growing in your life? Like, what would you say is your go-to thing to really rev it up when it's getting dry, or when you just, something that you found bears a lot of fruit in your life?
I would say set prayer times and for reflection. Like, I'm not very good at them, to be honest, but like I have a goal of having every morning and then afternoon and evening for prayer and scripture reading and reflection and all that stuff. And in the past, when I've done the mornings, I tend to like have, just a private kind of conversation with God. And then I have a moment of just silence, just to sit there with him. And that, it just gets my day going. It's so good. I have not been consistent at that or the nighttime scripture reading. But during the afternoons, when my kids go down for quiet time and have their screen time, I read the daily readings or daily Mass readings. And I can't remember the website that I go to, but I do the Mass readings, and then there's a reflection and a prayer. And then I have my own prayer time that I do after that, praying like a decade of the rosary. Yeah, that's something that's been consistent, that has, when I do miss it, if I do ever miss it, like I can feel that detachment a little bit, And even in times where I feel like that desolation, like I feel that kind of dryness or whatever, like there is a noticeable change. So it's not like it brings me out of the dryness and it just, transforms it and I'm all like, emotional and all that kind of stuff. But it just, I don't know, it just keeps that connection with God. I really, really love it.
What roles have you played or had in your parish or in other ministries since becoming Catholic?
I've worked with Birth Choice. They're kind of the ones who actually really solidified my pro-life perspective.
And for our listeners who aren't in the local area, what is Birth Choice?
Oh, yeah. Birth Choice is a pregnancy resource center, and they give free pregnancy tests and ultrasounds and refer out for STD testing and all that kind of stuff, maternity, clothes and baby supplies and such like that. They're a really great organization. They changed their name, didn't they?
Yeah.
What is it now?
Willow.
Yeah, so I worked with them for a couple of years, and I don't think this one's not Catholic, but I worked with I worked for Habitat for Humanity for a couple of years, and then I've done a couple of just small local organizations. Most recently, I worked with Project Gabriel for a couple of years as another pregnancy resource center in the Oklahoma City area, and since then I'd kind of felt a pull away from it. Like I really felt like God was calling me away from ministry, which is something that was really surprising to me, because I felt a call to help people from a very young age. Like I really quickly tell a story, but I just remember when I was in elementary school and my mom and I were driving somewhere at night, and there was like road construction, and she saw one of the guys, he was like directing traffic, and she thought he could use a cup of coffee, so she went by and picked up a cup of coffee and drove by him and gave it to him, and it was just like this instant, like, this is what I'm called to do, like I'm supposed to help people kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So God used that beautiful moment of generosity from my mom to really like lead me in that direction. And so when I started thinking that God was calling me away from doing kind of volunteer work, I was very confused, and I said no for like months. And but yeah, so since then I've been out of ministry for a while, but I'm kind of starting to feel like God might be pulling me back in that direction, so we'll see where it goes. But that's definitely kind of my jam, is the volunteer work stuff, so I look forward to seeing what he has in store for it.
I know that you have a passion for evangelization and apologetics. As a convert, I'm sure it's fueled a lot by that, and by just what led you to convert and to become Catholic. So can you tell us a little bit about that passion and what some of your dreams are related to that passion?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it really kind of started from a moment of restlessness, because I don't know if I'm sure you guys have heard of Catholic Answers. They're globally known. And I used to listen to their radio show a lot, like all the time, pretty much every day. And just, getting all the apologetic stuff that I could, because I just loved eating that stuff up as much as I could. But after a while, it just became kind of dry. Like, what is the point? Like, I'm learning all this stuff and I'm growing in knowledge, which is good. But, like, it's not going anywhere. It's just coming in and then staying there. And it just felt like it was really, I don't know, something was missing. And so I started thinking, okay, well, I need to, get out there and do something about this and like tell people about it. And being the fallen human that I am, I went about it very much the wrong way, and started, just every time I got together with family that's not Catholic, I would just be, every 5 seconds religion would come up, and they're just like, oh my gosh, leave me alone. And anyways, over time, God's worked on that, and now I have a Facebook page, and I just tell stories about my life and whatnot through the Catholic lens and whatnot, and I enjoy doing that. And then just trying to evangelize just by the way that I treat people, not necessarily even talking about, sometimes it's really hard because I really, really want to, but like trying not to bring it up all the time, and just, loving the people in my life. And I guess the end goal is really to, just bring Christ into the world and bring about conversions and, grow closer to God myself. And so, really truly love people. Like, I really want to love people and let them know, like, show them God. Very much so. Which I have learned is not something through, like, the whole, I was constantly, like, forcing them to hear me talk about my faith. I've learned that, like, showing them God isn't because, like, I'm smiling a whole bunch or I'm talking about it a whole bunch. Like, God does it. Like, it's not me doing it, it's right. God doing it. So I've been learning that. That's a hard lesson.
And I think it's interesting that you talk about your call, like where you, sort of that call moment when you had that clue to who you were. God used that to call you. You know, and that had nothing to do with him. So you're right. It is something so simple as just obeying that prompting inside of you to buy coffee for someone had an impact on her child that was eternal, that you carried everywhere with you. And that is just an example of what you're saying, you know, how God is the one that does it.
Yeah, exactly. You just love people. You love people the way that he wants you to love them, and he'll do the rest.
You talked about excuse me, you talked about your conversion and then your call to ministry. Is there any other like events in your life or experiences that you feel really shaped who you are?
No, yeah. I mean, I guess you guys have heard most of them, I guess. I'll just kind of shorten them up for this a little bit, but the adoration experience that I had, that was the biggest one, where I was about to come into the church, but then I started going through a very big period of doubt, like, you know, doubting whether or not God really existed, who this Jesus person was, if he was actually God or even a person at all, and all of this. And went to adoration one night and sat in the pew and started asking God, like, if you're real, like, show me a sign, because, you know, I'm about to bail out here, and, you know, I don't really want to, but I got to go where my logic leads me, and this is where it's leading me right now. So I sat back, and church was really creaky, and I kept hearing creaks, and I was like, is that you, God? Like, are you making noises? And this is supposed to, like, I'm just supposed to decipher a code or something? And as I was sitting there, I heard a voice. It was kind of like that I was, to try to give a picture, the Eucharist was in the monstrance, kind of up ahead of me, just a little to the right, because I was on the left side of the pews. And then there was a hallway directly to my right, and I heard a voice kind of up above me a bit, in between the hallway and the monstrance, and it was a man's voice, and he said, "Look at me." So I turned around and I started looking around, and there was only one other person in the chapel, woman, like, crocheting and, you know, sitting there. And then I was thinking, you know, well, there must be somebody in the hallway talking to somebody. So I go back to talking to God, and I heard it again, look at me, the same voice from the same spot. And I realized it wasn't coming from the hallway. And I was like, looked around and kind of got a little suspicious and, like, looked up at the monstrance. And so I was like, nah. And so I was like, come on, God, talk to me. And heard it a third time, and looked up at the Eucharist, and eyes just started burning, and I felt a feeling from my feet up to my head that I would describe as just like a filling up. And, you know, didn't know what to do with that, so I just knelt down. I was like, you know, really, really quick, like, small, like, you know, sign of the cross, thanks God, and, you know, took off. And just between there and the car and, like, leaving the parking lot, decided that, you know, I hadn't started hearing voices, and I hadn't made it up in my head. Like, this was something that was real, and I had a choice to make, to believe it or not. And I chose to believe it, and that's where it took off. I would say that one, and then again, another period of really big doubt in my life. I won't go into as much detail with this one, but it was a year ago, maybe a little bit more, but everything in me was telling me not to believe in God, and not like that I was wrong about this. And, you know, if I was wrong, then what horrible things were going to happen after I died. I don't know. It was just there. And I suffered with that for a couple of days, and then finally just told God, I was like, all right, like, you know, I have to make a decision. I can't just sit here in limbo. I'm going to go ahead and choose to believe you, that you're real. And it was literally one of the hardest things that I've ever done, to tell God I believe in you. So hard. It went against everything. Every feeling that I had was telling me not to. And so I chose to do that. And then I sat down on the couch, and I just had a conversation with God about, like, the specific doubts that I was having and how it was, you know, trying to work that out. And he really, like, walked with me through that and worked that out with me. And now, like, I occasionally that little doubt pops up in my head, and I'm like, oh, shut up. Smack that away, because I know without a shadow, like, I could say without a shadow of a doubt, I still have them sometimes, but I know for certain that he exists and loves me and all that stuff. So.
It's really common for people on the path to holiness to have moments of absolutely not knowing if what they're believing is real. Like that, and St. Therese suffered with that really, really a lot.
Yeah.
I thinking that he wasn't real. It was all just, something made up in darkness. So
Yeah.
that's pretty common.
Well, and for those who are experiencing that right now, what I learned from that experience, because that was the main thing that I was worried about, was if I die, like when I die, when I die, what's going to happen to me, And I came up with 3 basically possible options. Was that either there was this God that didn't care and he was distant and whatever, and in that case, and didn't love us and didn't, care what was going to happen. And in that case, regardless of whether or not I followed him, it wasn't going to matter when I died what was going to happen. He was going to do with me what he will, because he doesn't care about me. So there's that option. If there isn't a God and, the materialistic atheism is true, then I'm just going to disappear into nothingness. So it doesn't matter what I believe. But if it's true that God exists, if he does love you and he did come to earth and he did do all these things to show you how much he loves you, which I firmly believe that he did, then it does matter what you believe. And so even through those doubts, you got to strive through, strive to win that race. And, when you die, again, what you do, what you believe is going to matter. You're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell or purgatory. And so, yeah. So strive.
Tell us an embarrassing moment that you've had to lighten things up a bit. Something that nobody else knows about or only a few people know about that happened to you.
Huh. Oh no. You added that part.
Now everybody's got to know.
You did give everyone a list, but now I'm sort of embellishing. Or maybe, just something that you think is funny or,
I don't know. The one that comes to mind, and I don't know that it's that... I don't know. Is that great a story? I'm really bad at telling stories, but it happened a month ago, and I've actually done this several times. I don't know if y'all have done it. So there was a time at Mass when I went out to receive communion, and after doing so, I went around, and I think I went around the wrong way or something, so I went down the wrong pew, and then I had to go around back the other way, and I'm blocking people's way. And it was super awkward. And when I get really nervous, my face turns bright red. And then I notice that I'm turning bright red, so it turns even more bright red. And then my eyes start burning, so I can't open them very much because they're watering. So I just look I looked funny. And so anyways, I went back to the pew and my husband's just looking at me are you okay? And so I'm just really embarrassed because I don't like that attention. And, I get through it, it's fine. And then I go out and my husband's so the next time you go up for communion, I was oh, you can.
So, Alisha, is there a favorite saint or devotion that you have?
Well, I would say I have a couple of different favorite saints. I really love Saint Mother Teresa. I've talked about her quite a bit. She's awesome. I just love her. I don't know, just her dedication and her devotion to loving people, even the least among us, and just the words that she uses to express her love in God, and her humility that she had. The humility that she had, she was just really inspiring, because I tend to one of the sins that I have a struggle with sometimes is a bit of vanity. And which is really weird because it's oxymoronic, because I'm really self-conscious half the time, and then other times I'm I'm the greatest. And so it doesn't make any sense.
That is vanity, though. Being overly self-conscious can be
there you go,
part of vanity.
There you go. But so I really like Mother Teresa. And St. Maximilian Kolbe. I absolutely adore his story. I think he just the self-sacrifice. I think about how there are so many times in my life that I have not spoken about God in front of people, or said even just God bless you, or I've tried to kind of joke around about my face in maybe an inappropriate way because I'm worried about what somebody thinks about me. And I'm man, if I do that, could I ever be a Maximilian Kolbe who laid down his life for somebody for the sake of Christ? You know what I mean? I'm experiencing these tiny little moments of just inconvenience in terms of like quote unquote persecution. And like him and so many others, you know, gave their lives and they were willing to go through so much pain and torment. And I'm like, man, I like, you know, like it's very eye-opening. So, but I really like him. There's other St. Teresa of Avila, St. Therese of Lisieux, like all of them have had little moments in my life where they've made a difference. But in terms of a devotion, I did a consecration to the Holy Spirit earlier this year, last year by the time this airs. Since then, I have had a really close relationship with the Holy Spirit. I have a specific prayer that I say most mornings when I remember to do it, to him. And yeah, once I did that, I just close.
Have you heard of Blessed Hans Jägerstätter?
I have not.
Okay, so you've got to meet this guy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that sometime.
I love that name.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh goodness. It would, so many places. It would probably be Italy.
What part?
Yeah.
And why?
What part and why? I would say probably Rome. For the Colosseum and for the Sistine Chapel and for the Vatican and all of that. I would love to see all of that. From what I understand, like the Colosseum has slowly been like eroding away, and it breaks my heart. I want to get there so bad before that happens. But there, and then for the life of me, I cannot remember where in Italy this is, but from what I understand, and somebody might correct me on this, but from what I understand, there is a pyramid, like a legitimate pyramid that was built over there, however many hundreds or thousands or whatever years ago. And I would love to see that, because from what I think, you can travel like the entire like length of the boot in like a day, and so I'd be able to like hit all the major spots. So yeah, so I've always been a big fan of like Egyptian, like learning about Egyptian culture and just the Mayan and whatnot, like all the pyramids and whatnot. And so I would love to see
generally
that.
pagan stuff.
Generally pagan stuff, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
That's cool. I had to look it up. All right, so you too should also look it up, listener, because it's interesting.
I would also like to go to the church that's decorated in human bones in Poland. I can't remember the name of it, but I find that so creepily fascinating that I really want to go. So, and honestly, there's so many more places. I want to travel the world. I would love to do that. So,
Well, thank you, Alisha, for letting us interview you today.
I am honored. Thank you.
And I hope you all enjoy learning a little bit more about one of our co-hosts. Thanks.
Bye.
And as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Thank you.
Join us again in 2 weeks.
Until then, may God bless you and may Mary accompany you.